to be in that meeting, and I spoke, but this time it is a pre-planned meeting. And my presentation about the gender differential impact of COVID-19 pandemic is, yeah, I think we need to replace this. Yeah. So, most important thing, and I think most of us know because YWCA was also greatly involved in providing support to the those who suffered at the hands of a pandemic forced lockdown. And we all have gone through 4 phases of lockdown and another 3 phases of unlock period. And it has impacted the economy, society, and governance structures in a great way. And the two types of responses came from the women's movement, from the social movement. There were those who felt that take action now. And the governance structures, they said we will wait for the herd immunity. Nearly for 3 months, they said that we will wait for herd immunity, do nothing. But the social movement and the women's movement and community-based organizations, they were the ones who believed in a scenario one of a take action now. The mainstream macroeconomic discourse mainly was focused on the economy going down and the fiscal deficit that they were facing, and the kind of a health emergency in the context of massive staff shortage, where the 50% of the posts in the public health sector are currently also not filled up because of the slashing of the budget and the government expenditure on the health issue or on public health. Another very important thing that came, like what MG Narega also stopped as a result of lockdown, and we saw that even in the rural areas, the distress situation was unsurmountable, and the whole law and order machinery that collapsed. And we saw the license permit raj under lockdown, and the rent seeking behavior were found both in the private sector as well as public sector. Everywhere people were asking inflated rates for transport or admission in the hospital, and most of the private hospitals and clinics were completely closed down. And it is in this context that women suffered the most, and not only in our country but all over India. Are you comfortable with English, or should I
Yes,
speak in
yes,
Hindi
yes,
also?
yes.
It's okay, no? Yeah. So the gender differential impact, we saw that for women and girls in terms of increased care work, because the public health system, private health care facilities were not available, public health care facilities were overburdened. And first, the state, the approach was that social isolation. Then it talked about a home care, and that increased the care work of women. Because of the lockdown, all the family members were at home, and there were major demands on women in terms of food and care and supervision of homework. Plus, the increased job losses also created tremendous burden and the stress, emotional stress, and the increased violence against women. And this whole term called social distancing, which is a highly objectionable term, because social distancing in Indian context is so much linked to varnashram system, that means a caste system, where the Shudras and Atishudras, they are expected to maintain social distance from the Savarna Hindu, because they are supposed to be polluted. Or even in the context of the whole history of slavery and the apartheid, because the blacks were not allowed to be in the proximity of the white. So I think that term, early after all, even World Health Organization abandoned the term, and it was replaced by physical distancing. But the stay at home orders, which came as a result of lockdown, also resulted in a tremendous burden on women, emotional burden, physical burden, and also burden, economic burden also, because when you have less income, you have to really put in more labor and get the inferior quality of material, which takes away a lot of time in this. So the United Nations, for the first time, like it gave an advisory on the 20th of March. It came up with a special website called In Focus Gender Equality Matters in COVID-19. And it said that COVID-19 is not only the health issue, because all the general major discourse was that the COVID was taking heavy toll of men, but the social situation and the social conditioning under which the gender relations operate created more, the differential impact was far more pronounced, because women, they are disproportionately affected in terms of job loss, reduced working hours, and also the bankruptcy that we saw. We already had a scenario where from 2000 till 2019, in those 19 years, there has been continuous decline of women in the workforce. That means women who get income, women who have money, women who are economically independent, their proportion is less than one fourth. And we saw that even if we compare it with other developing countries, India's women workforce participation is only 23%. So that also makes the condition of women much more precarious. The way COVID-19 pandemic was experienced in a gender differential way, like it was the intersections of inequalities in the labor markets, because labor markets are also socially constructed. They are segmented: gender, class, caste, region, all of them, but access to digital world, all of them play very important role in what kind of bargaining power you have in the economy. Intra-household power relations during stay at home, like it is the women and the girls who are supposed to continuously provide breakfast and then lunch and then evening snacks and this thing, because everyone is at home. And there is also a lot of surveillance on the adolescent girls, because earlier they had some freedom to go out, either they went to school or college, but now 24/7 they are home. Everyone is just checking their mobile and with whom do they talk, and a lot of violence against adolescent girls also increase. And we also got many panic calls. So the stress and the domestic violence, I think they are very important factor that we need to understand. Unequal effect of working from home along with the housework, and the gendered experiences of household responsibilities, sexual violence, child sexual abuse. We saw that during these 10 months, over 400,000 calls were made, distress calls were made on helpline, whether it was 181 or 1098. And majorly 25% of these calls were from young girls, where either they were forced to marry, there were questions, there were incidences of incest, there were incidences of child sexual abuse. All these things were reported. And in the ordinary circumstances, when such thing happen, immediately you can seek police help or the help of the neighbors or help of the people in the school. But under the lockdown, the situation of lockdown, you have to remain in the proximity of the abuser, the person who violates your dignity, who violates your body, because you can't run away because of the rules of the lockdown. Personal care and frontline healthcare services to the family members, because elderly care, child care, all that fell on women. Even the food security, the question of food security, because the government intervention was very erratic. Even the shelter for the homeless migrant workers, as you know, how many of them, like out of 12 crore migrants workers, we have 3 crore are women. That means 30 million women who were migrating, and their problems and their human miseries that we have witnessed. And the testing for coronavirus and other social policies, for that also women were the last to be this thing. Today you read Times of India's main editorial. In that, the sanitary workers, they are now also sanitary workers who are the most exposed to coronavirus, because they are dealing with the contaminated material. Okay, and even the manual scavengers, they are the ones who are not even given vaccine. So if when you talk about the frontline worker, they are the frontline worker who are working under extremely hazardous conditions, but they were not even given PPE, personal protection equipments. They were managing with their own homemade mask. So social protection to the frontline workers, that is another very, and you know that majority of the frontline workers, whether they are nurses or Anganwadi workers or school or ASHA workers or Gram Sevikas, all of them are women. The impact of shift in the priorities of public health services, like so many hospitals all over India, all the hospitals were converted into corona hospital. Even the maternity wards were converted into corona ward. And that's why so many women who were pregnant, they did not get antenatal care. So many women who were in labor, they had to deliver babies on the road, or neighbors helped them, or they were just, some of them delivered right in front of the hospital gate, because the gatekeepers won't allow them in. And even when the later on, when the women's organizations intervened, they filed public interest litigation in the Supreme Court. They say that reproductive rights of women should be declared as an essential service. It is not only that corona is the essential service, but this is also essential service. Then also, when the wards were empty, the gatekeepers would not allow them in. And suddenly they would ask, if you are ready to give 2 lakh rupees, then we will give you bed. So that is the kind of this thing. And in the context of last 10 months of the job losses which women had, but there is, even when the economy reopened, the patriarchal mindset has become stronger, because they say that even there are so many men are unemployed, why should women compete with them? That kind of a responses we are now getting from the industry. Even in Narega, there was a time where Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme, and now government is planning to start a urban employment scheme. But there also they say that when men are the breadwinner, women are the homemaker. That kind of stereotype we see is becoming. I think you will have to mute everybody. Who is the technical team? Hello,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
technical
ma'am.
team. Please mute everyone except me, because it's very
Yes, ma'am.
disturbing. Yeah. So what we see that because of this kind. So host has muted everyone. You are also muted. We are muted. So I think I should be allowed.
We can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear. Okay, so gender stereotypes, they have now become very, very pronounced in the context of, so whatever we achieved in last 150 years of social reform movement, I think we are turning the wheels of history in a backward direction, because so many evils against which we fought in the 19th century, they have re-emerged. In fact, in so many areas, the child marriages or the trafficking of women, or even sex selective abortions have compounded because there was a freezing of PCPNDT Act. And when it comes to the gender stereotypes, I think the major casualty is in terms of care work, because as the care work is stereotyped as a women's domain, around the world, women spend 2 to 10 times more time in unpaid care work. So this unequal distribution of caring responsibility is linked to discriminatory social institutions and stereotypes on gender roles. So that's why I think now the major understanding that is emerging is that, along with combating the coronavirus, we will also have to combat our gender norms, which just divide that care is only women's responsibility. Data from the rapid assessment surveys also show that in all countries, women are more likely to see increases in both in unpaid domestic work and unpaid care work of the ill people in this thing. In addition, they also are more likely to than men to say they are in charge of performing 3 activities: unpaid childcare, unpaid adult care, and unpaid domestic work. While men would say that they tend to concentrate on fewer tasks like shopping for the household or playing with the children. Even the homework, supervision of homework for children is majorly done by women. And this is the data provided by the UN based on the rapid assessment survey of 191 countries during coronavirus. Now, another very important concern that we have is about the time spent on unpaid care work in urban and rural areas. In the poverty groups, like those who are earning less than 10,000 per month as a salary, this is the ILO data, where men are spending 29 minutes per day on unpaid work. That means less than half an hour, while women are spending 312 minutes. In the rural areas, men spend 32 minutes for unpaid work, while women are spending 291 minutes. And this is the major reason, because the pandemic has increased unpaid work exponentially. The amount of work in terms of cleanliness and about washing of hands, this thing, looking after a person any person who is ill, with to look after them with the overall conditionality of the corona care, that itself is a very, very demanding job. In spite of this, out of Fortune 500 companies, only 2 corporate houses, they said that they would give special leave, fully paid special leave. That was a Swiggy and Tata Steel. Otherwise, none of them have even talked about the kind of work. Most of them, when women did not report for work due to unpaid work at home under lockdown, they were just retrenched. And you know that 92% of women are in the informal sector. when it comes to enterprise, only 9% of women have their own enterprises. And these enterprises are also mostly nano enterprises, micro enterprises with investment of 50,000 capital or 2 lakh capital or 5 lakhs of capital. Okay, these are the only this thing. Now, they also suffered the most. All women entrepreneurs, they did not have any kind of a support system. And even at the time of unlock period, like July onwards, where Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana or so many state schemes were created, none of them were addressed to this segment. Most of them were addressed to MSME, micro, small, and medium industries, mostly managed by men. When it comes to like frontline workers, if we see in this particular slide, you can see that we have 9 public health workers, who are officially frontline workers in our country. 10.3 lakhs accredited ASHA workers who are working in the rural areas, 27 lakhs Anganwadi workers, and government school teachers who were distributing PDS ration. So women as a healthcare providers make up 70% of the frontline health workforce as doctors, nurses, ayabais, sanitary workers, Anganwadi workers, ASHA workers, and they are exposed to a greater risk. And they are the ones who who had so many grievances because they were not even given any priority. Now, coming to women in the organized sector, only 6% of women are in the organized sector. I'm sure YWCA, most of the women are in the organized sector. You get protection of protective labor legislation. And these women were also facing increased burden of domestic care in the wake of children and earning members being confined to home after lockdown. Middle and upper class educated women employed who are working from home as they have information technology enabled communication channels. So it is now become a buzzword, work from home. They also must juggle with the housework, childcare, homeschooling, and also office work without support of domestic help. But still, they are relatively better off. The major problem that we see is and media also gave a lot of coverage of middle class educated families, how men were sharing housework or how interpersonal bonding increased. People started creating WhatsApp group. They started talking to distant relatives. Many of them learned so many online courses, blah, blah, blah. But the most poignant situation was found in the women in the unorganized sector, who constitute 92% of the female workforce of our country. And we saw that this informalization is a more pronounced in case of women workers. And we saw that gender segregation, 91 million jobs, that means 9 crore people who lost jobs from the socially disadvantaged groups like SC, ST. 25% of the job losses were that of women. And now also, currently, if we see among the unemployed also, those who have not been absorbed in the economy after unlock period, when the lockdown got over, women are the major constituent, 40% of the job losses, that women who were earlier working and now they are unemployed. So in this condition, the most vulnerable populations because of the lockdown were the women-headed households. The households where the main economic responsibility is on women. That means widows, separated, divorced, deserted, and widow. They are the ones who suffered, who had to face a lot of hardship. People with disability, pregnant women, homeless people, street children, lonely elderly, socially stigmatized transgender community, and the sex workers. In fact, so many well-known philanthropic organizations who were providing 20,000 lunch packets and who were providing ration kits in thousands and all, they refused to give ration kits or lunch packets for transgender community and sex workers. It was finally the the social work institutions and some of the community-based organizations, they created a separate pool of funding for their support through crowdfunding. Prisoners and inmates in overcrowded shelter homes. In fact, the Yerwada jail reported 33% of prisoners had got COVID-19 because they are so overcrowded. And the new laws which came that we should, at least those who were for the minor crimes, they should be released, that also did not happen. The makeshift tents which were created there, also the toilets and all were not adequate. People got massive contamination. And informal sectors workers, basically the daily wage earners, head loaders, construction workers, vendors, domestic workers, small scale manufacturing people, recycling workers, all of them, they suffered the most, about which not even much is recorded. It's only the rapid assessment studies done by the self-help groups or the trade union organizations or civil society organizations or researchers, some of the think tanks or women's union like a self-employed women's union, they have done the rapid assessment studies. So the state government, some of the state governments, they responded very quickly. They were accessible. The elected representatives were accessible on mobile. There was a responsible mainstream proactive social media coverage. Shelters were created after 3 or 4 weeks of the lockdown. The issues of sanitation and hygiene, the most important this thing, when the People's Health Assembly or a Jana Swasthya Sabha or a health activist, they filed petition in several or organizations like Ghar Bachao, Ghar Banao, they filed petition in high courts and Supreme Courts that there should be universalization of PDS because our FCI go down were flooded. They were over this thing. They were bursting with grain. It was not that we did not have any shortage of grain. The buffer stock was very high, and it was said that you should not ask for Aadhaar or any documentation for giving PDS. Grains, whether it is rice or wheat. So that happened. So the civil society organizations played very important role. Another thing was that need assessment. What are the needs of the people? People with a certain kind of comorbidities, need of the elderly people, need of children, need of pregnant women, need of people who are homeless, because so many people became homeless. They could not pay rent because most of the urban slums have 40 to 55% of the workforce living in the slums, and they could not pay because of the lockdown. They did not get their salary. Employers were not. Most of the employers were too unkind. They did not even pay them even salary for month of March, where they had worked for up to 25th of March, and their salary was not given. So it is in this context that the question of starting camps where the shelter, this thing where the shelter could be given to people, and the community kitchens were started. About the reproductive and child health issues, it was the women's organizations and the health organization, they took initiative. The helplines were started first by the women's groups, and then so many state governments and the state commission for women, municipal hospitals, police. They also started counseling services for children, survivors of violence, students who were stranded, individuals with mental health issues due to distress as a result of social isolation. And also when the reverse migration happened at that time, also so many spontaneous solidarity that emerged in terms of giving them food packet and water and footwear because they had to walk for miles together. And also still there are so many unresolved issues. For example, payment of all the arrears to the workers. The study by Indian Social Studies Trust shows that 85% of the domestic workers have not received their salary right from the month of March till now. Their employers are just not picking up mobile. They are not even allowed. The gatekeepers and the watchmen would not allow them to enter the housing society. So this is a major tragedy that has happened, and they were also supported. They are surviving only on the food packets or the ration distributed by the NGOs. The question of migration, for the first time, we started looking at migration more seriously. Earlier, there was just a popular this thing that migrants are they are overburdening the city's infrastructure, or they are, or anything that is wrong with the city or the urban area is because of the migrant. No, everything. But now, once the reverse migration happened and the economic collapse, first time we started talking about migrant, how crucial their labor is for the urban economy. So that became, and 3 crore women who are migrant. But in whole discourse on migration, it was always the man as a migrant that was there. Even if you see the official record, when it comes to women migrant, they would say whole family migrate. Man migrates for work, women migrate because of marriage. That is the stereotype you have. But women migrate in all sectors of the economy. We have a women who have migrated, whether they are officers or whether they are in manufacturing sector, they are in service sector, they are in platform based economy or a gig economy. Everywhere you have women who have migrated, but still we don't even take them into consideration. It is only through the people sharing pictures like this, or the videos which people shared. There we saw that so many women from working in a different kind of this thing, including the child labor or domestic workers who were working in the urban centers, they also walk for 200 miles to 1200 miles. And we saw that and the kind of miseries they had to face in terms of reproductive health issue, because sanitary pads were not even declared as an essential service. And it took the initiative of women activists who approached the local self-government bodies that you just can't stop a supply of sanitary pads. Or even the question of reproductive other health issues like antenatal care, vaccination of pregnant women in her 7th month, or a neonatal care, or vaccination, polio vaccine for the children. Everything has stopped. The children were falling ill, they were carried by their parents, person with disability, their special interest. In fact, so many petitions were filed about people with disability, robbery, extortion, theft, sexual violence, child sexual abuse, suicide among transgender, road accident, train accident, trafficking of women and children. All these kind of evil forces, they were running a roost. And that's why and first time, like, labor ministry came up. First of all, they said they did not have any data on in migration or out migration or reverse migration, because now we had started talking about reverse migration and then circular migration. Those who went to the village, they did not have anything, any food in the village also. They were seen as a burden by their own relatives. They came back to the city, which is called circular migration. Now, in all this thing, there was no data. In fact, Supreme Court, the petition which was filed in the Supreme Court by the legal group, there way back in April, the Supreme Court said that more than 2 lakh people were on the road, but they did not have any idea who reached, how many got lost, how many reached the destination. So first time, at least, Labor Ministry has initiated 4 major studies on nature of migration: cross-country migration, inter-district migration, interstate migration, and intra-district migration. All these 4 studies are there, so that at least what kind of social protection and social security needs to be provided, that we saw. Throughout the country, we saw this kind of a picture where the people in the neighborhood, organizations like YWCA or NGOs or a women's organization or self-help groups, they started relief camps and the community kitchens. So many sisters, they were also involved in this thing. And here too, we saw that women were not sitting idle. Even in the shelter homes, women were the ones who were making 12,000 chapatis and who were making big pots of rice and this. So unpaid care work of even those who were suffering, who were starving, who were in the misery, you saw this kind of a strong work culture, and so dignified and self-respecting these people are. They said, we don't eat haram ki roti. We are the ones who always eat khun pasine ki kamai, no? And that was the spirit that they had. We saw so many women's organizations. They also were doing the need assessment. What were the needs of different sections of the people? What were the needs of adolescent girls? What were the needs of the students? What were the needs of a isolated family which was stigmatized either due to caste? Because we saw that while doing the relief work, those who were very aggressive, they would be the first one to take the ration kit, and some humanitarian person would say that no, but the Harijan Basti is left out, madam, please reach the food there. Or sex workers, they were completely left out. In fact, for 4 months they did not get any kind of relief. Finally, they made a panic call to the relief workers, and then that was organized. Same with the transgender community, they were the ones who were left out. So need assessment became very important. Many educational institutions and youth organizations, they were involved in doing this need assessment. They would travel all over the city, either with police protection or without, but they would through NSS, National Service Scheme, and they came. These are the volunteers of Vacha, women's organizations. So relief operations, then the volunteering for community kitchens, networking with the supply chain, like you know how to write proposal, how to contact the PR, public relations officers in the multinational company or in the corporate world, or with the grocer or farmer or small producer or local corporator, because you need water, you need cooking gas for running the community kitchen. So coordination with the government organizations and the local NGOs, the non-government organization, micro planning and the need assessment, identification of specific needs of the household. What are the needs of elderly people, person with diabetes, person with heart condition, persons with disability or excluded due to social disability, where they are excluded due to caste or religion or gender, or preparation for audiovisual clips, messages, short films to take the message, use the communication media, social media to reach out to people, because mainstream media was giving only certain types of coverage. Preparation for educational and recreational material, using personal vehicles. So many students and who are otherwise they would go for a ride or they would go for a pleasure trip, but this is the time where they use their vehicles for support services. Webinars, Zoom talks, panel discussions for the citizens, they became very important. Even in the camps, like they were organizing some film shows in the evening for their recreation. They were there in the camps for a long period. But what happened when it came to women in health, I think the major tragedy happened there, because only 24% of the newborns, women who were pregnant, they were registered. Okay, that because the ICDS centers and the primary health centers, all other health services got closed down due to COVID. The record of number of pregnant women, only one-fourth of them, less than one-fourth of them are recorded. And newly born babies, out of 100, only 17 babies are recorded. So what about their inoculation? What about their vaccination? What about their polio, this thing? What about the neonatal care? So this is a major problem that we have faced in the last 10 months. And the Ministry of Health doesn't have any record of these children. Another thing, when it comes to the agrarian sector, we saw that when the lockdown was declared, we were in the middle of Rabi harvesting season. First time, like we heard such an optimistic picture of the agrarian scenario, where 11% rise in the agrarian production had taken place. Fruits and vegetables and grains were ready, but lockdown, though it was there in the field, people could not reach because of the lockdown. And those farmers who tried to reach them, they were brutally beaten up by police. And in the midst of that, we also got these three ordinances about the monopoly of APMC being broken, like Farmers Produce Trade Commerce Act. We got another thing about the contract farming. And the third act was that of Essential Commodities Amendment, about which farmers in India currently, even the women farmers, they say that they are very detrimental to the small players, and there's a complete corporatization and commercialization of agriculture that is creating tremendous human misery. And that's why women farmer, there is a new organization, all India organization of women farmers, called MAKAM, Mahila Kisan Adhikar Manch. And they said that they are the ones who are on 6 counts. They say that these new laws are not going to help women farmers in any way, because as it is, women farmers have hardly half an acre or 1 acre or 2 acre of land. They are not even treated as farmers. When we talk about farmers, it is always men farmers. And when we talk about women in the farm households, we call them farmer's wife, farmer's daughter, farmer's mother, or farmer's widow. We don't even see them. And we know at one level, World Health, Food and Agriculture Organization, and all the researchers, and they are talking about future of farming, future of agriculture is in women's hand. Women are the future. And currently also, like, there is a massive feminization of agriculture. But still, when women don't have a status of a farmer, then they lose out in terms of whatever support system we have, in terms of subsidized water, subsidized electricity, subsidized fertilizer. None of them they are entitled to, and they don't have Kisan card. Women are not even given Kisan card. And actually in the field, they are the ones who are doing the work. And that's why this new organization is talking about all the status of women, identity of women as a farmer. And currently also in the farmers agitation, you are seeing so many vociferous and articulate women. So many of them are even highly educated women who are in the farm sector. Coming to the tribal women, the 11% of Indian economy, you have contribution from the tribal people, and they collect 200 types of forest produce, with which has a contribution to the national income is up to 20,000 crore. Okay, so it's a very big, and they have suffered a lot due to lockdown. Whatever they had collected, whether it was a maua or a tendu leaf or bamboo or sal or rack or chironji or tamarind, gum, all these products were ready and they could not be lifted because of the lockdown. And they even asked for the exemption from GST, which the government has not accepted. There is a lot of starvation. In fact, it was the UNICEF which brought out the news of massive starvation among the tribal people during lockdown. And that's why now they have activized the supply chain to the tribal areas. Another very important sector is the fisheries, women fisher folks, because women fisher folks are, they have a small trade. They don't have refrigeration, they don't have tempo, they don't have this. So and the shelf life of the fish which they collect is hardly 3-4 hours because they don't have those facilities. They are the ones who face tremendous hardship during the lockdown and COVID virus. And another is a very important sector is the handloom sector, which is the major employer of women in the rural areas when it comes to non-farm activity. There also we are seeing a downfall. And these things are very, very important to know that what kind of new economy we want to create, which will empower women, which would ensure gender equity. That is very important. So the issues that we need to address currently, for gender equity is one is a gender pay gap, which is extremely high in Indian context. Women get in the rural areas. Please, I think mute others. Hello. Yeah. So gender pay gap is one. So in the rural areas, it's a 1/3 of the male wages. In urban areas, it is 2/3 of the male wages. But generally, there are two ways in which gender gap is perpetuated. One, for the same work, women get less wages. Another thing is that in the pyramid of the economy, women are at the bottom of the pyramid in wages. So that also creates tremendous wage gap. Sexual harassment at workplace has emerged as a major issue in the 21st century. World Bank calls it the most devastating occupational hazard of the 21st century, because women are entering all sectors of the economy. Erosion of labor standard evolved by ILO. ILO completed its century in 2019. ILO gave a concept of decent work. And what is that decent work? No violence at workplace, 8 hours of rest, 8 hours of work, and 8 hours of leisure time activity, which is completely gone because 12 states have already challenged the labor standard and they have increased working hours from 8 hours to 12 hours. Already they have done under the lockdown. Occupational health and safety, very important. Hire and fire policy, which are currently like in favor of, because 48 labor laws we had, they have been replaced by 4 labor codes. There is a lot of dissatisfaction against these labor codes because all these 4 labor codes are favoring the employer's hire and fire policy is totally arbitrary. No grievance redressal mechanism. You recently saw that garment workers, women garment workers in Bangalore or workers in Ahmedabad, and they were extremely happy. One, because of non-payment of wages for 5-6 months, and second, because of increased workload and increase the number of hours, and no other facilities were even given. So, but they did not have any platform to, because they could not go to labor court. Currently, you can't. Invisibilization of women work, and in so many sectors of the currently the most expanding sector of the economy is the construction. In construction also you have a Jodi system. In Jodi system only man has a face and name. The I card is in the name of man. Women are not even treated as a worker. So unless you are recognized as a worker, you will not get any social protection and social security. So that is one important agenda. Visibilization of gender disaggregated data and statistics and indicators. Government of India for the first time has come up with a report, very exhaustive report. You can download it, about the percentage share of total time in different activities. What are the paid and unpaid activity? And the official report says that Indian women spend 299 minutes in a day doing unpaid work, while men spend 99 minutes in unpaid work. So this kind of a difference also shows that how much time of women goes in unpaid work, and that is still not considered as contributing to the economy, or there is no recognition of women's unpaid work. And that's why the demand by the women's rights organization is, one, redistribute unpaid work. That means unpaid work is not only women's job, care work is not only women's job, housework is not only women's job. Engage men and boys and everyone in the family to share unpaid work, that means a care work. Recognize this government and the civil society has to recognize that care work is extremely important. Unpaid cooking, cleaning, caring, looking after animals, kitchen gardening, collection of fuel, fodder, water, for which nobody is paid. Women are not paid, but they are extremely important. So you recognize that, raise awareness, build capacity, and also support the caregivers. No, it's very, very important. Don't allow them to collapse due to overwork. And third one is reduce care work, wherever the like sanitation work. Currently, why should the manual scavenging be there? Why should people have to, even during the COVID virus, most of them had to enter gutter, and most of the sanitation workers are women, manual scavengers are women. And why can't we go for mechanization? Why Kerala is the only state where you have robots are being used for sanitation work? Why none of the other states are doing it? It's a question of political will, because other states are even more affluent states, for prosperous states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, Punjab, Haryana, they have a much, much more state gross domestic product. Kerala is that way in terms of per capita income, it is less. But still, when it comes to human development, investment is very high. So it's a very important to provide high quality public services, including sanitation. So redistribute, recognize, and reduce. These three R's become very important for gender equality and empowerment of women. Economists are constantly talking, they are talking hue and cry and creating so much of scare and complete anxiety that economy is closed. But actually, we say that economy is not closed. Everyone is cooking, cleaning, taking care of their loved ones. It is not just valued by economists because it is normally unpaid work. So I think it's a very important high time to recognize the role of unpaid work to sustain the economy. The important concern when it comes to gender equality, first of all, the survival issue of starvation in rural and tribal areas, which is extremely acute, that needs to be addressed urgently. Loss faced by women farmers and the forest dwellers, non-recognition of women as workers that results in deprivation from state support, and exponential increase in demand for MG-NREGA. In fact, so most of the states have even finished their annual funding because so many men were also unemployed. Those who went back to the village in Kerala, even the engineers and people with master's degrees were standing in the queue for MG-NREGA. So it is so increasing the budget for MG-NREGA is very important, which the budget did not do. Women as a care seekers, I think it's very important to see the significance of health issues of women in the public health system. We have seen like there's a report of massive malnutrition among women and children under the lockdown, and we need to have an extra measure for their overall health needs, not only reproductive health needs, but also the overall health needs of women and girls and infants. The question of a neonatal issue, death, maternal mortality, maternal morbidity, self-deliveries by women, and child mortality. I think that has invited the attention that we need, because India is signatory to Sustainable Development Goal, and African countries have gone much ahead of India because of the state took such a proactive measure in addressing these issues. So I think it's a very urgent need for state intervention, and also the helplines for pregnant women. That services for reproductive health need should be taken as a top priority. The question, another thing is that we faced is a digital divide. Currently, 1 crore girls are out of school because of lockdown, because of the online education. They don't have smartphone, they don't have computer. And if there is a one smartphone in the house, it goes to the boy. So I think it's a very important that digital, if we are going to use, because today also it was said that from 15th of February, universities and schools will open. But just now the principal of the college where I am on the management, has received the order that no, up to 8th March, the colleges will not open. That means if the online education has become such an important significance it has got, then how are we going to include digital, include women? How are we going to and girls who have been forced out of schools and colleges, how are we going to get them back? It was 150 years that social reformers like uh, Maharshi Karve, Savitri Bai Phule, the Pandita Ramabai, they were the ones who struggled so hard to get modern education to Indian girls. Even the Rokeya Sakhawat Hussain, she tried for, dedicated her life for Muslim girls' education. YWCA in those days, some 80, 85 years back, played a pioneering role in increasing women's education and enhancing skill training among women by starting vocational training institute. Now, all these things will be reversed. Currently, if this goes on, the kind of achievements we have made in last 150 years, it will be completely wiped out. And it is not only the loss to that particular girl, it is a loss to the community, loss to the society, and loss to the economy, because 21st century is a knowledge economy, and knowledge economy thrives on enhancement of knowledge. And if these girls are deprived of of education, if they can't get digital this thing, and we also need to find out other alternatives. I remember in the 70s and 80s we used to use, we countrywide classroom was so popular. UGC used to organize classes on, we had only one television channel, which was Doordarshan and black and white. And we have seen literacy program has massively used Doordarshan for afternoon from 12 to 4 hours. Doordarshan used to use it for educational program. They would announce in advance that particular day, this particular topic in physics or a chemistry or mathematics would be taught, and people in the village, in the tribal area, in the poverty groups, even in the cities, they used to have. In Mumbai, we had a Gnanadeep was a program which Doordarshan used. And I have seen so enthusiastically people used to learn watching this TV, and they used to. So I think we need to have a multiple methods of imparting education. One can be use of television, both private sector, like we have a 24/7, so many channels are there. Can we request them that they should allot 4 or 5 hours a day for educational activities, and also use of FM radio for education, because we also have a tradition of Shruti and Smruti. People, you just listen and memorize. That is also very important to this thing. But I think this is a very emergency situation where we need to include. Currently only 25% of students have internet facility. Rest of them are not there. So I think only all the textbooks have been uploaded on the government websites, like NCERT books are available in public domain. You can just download them, their PDF of the book, but people don't have internet connectivity. Another major concern which is very important when it comes to the discourse on gender equality is the violence against women. United Nations declared violence against women under pandemic as a shadow pandemic, that we had this big pandemic of coronavirus, but the shadow pandemic of violence happened because of the social isolation and the rules of lockdown, where after, even when you faced violence or if you anticipated violence, you had no place to run around, and you had, there was hardly any support. And it was in this response, and so many cases of cases were reported of a forced child marriages, like in 12,000 child marriages have already taken place during the lockdown, which are publicly known because there is FIR in the police. But and State National Commission of Women also said that they could reach out to only 1.2 lakh panic calls. They had received more than 4 lakh panic calls, distress calls of the children who were forced, both boys and girls who were forced into marriage. But they could respond to only that. They were so overwhelmed by the distress which was created due to lockdown and the pandemic and the illnesses all around. Another thing was a child labor that has also increased exponentially. All these children who are pulled out of school, they were uh, doing either a rack picking or any kind of a child work in the rural and urban, both the centers that we have seen. We have also seen the incidences of forced marriage in a very, very big way of an adult women also, because only 20 people need to be fed. Under Corona, you don't have to spend much. So many middle class families also forced their boys and girls to get forcibly married. And the worst thing was that sex selective abortions that also increased exponentially. This is the data provided by the National Commission for Women, that as compared to the previous year, how the incidences of violence increased, and also the cyber crimes have increased exponentially. A boys' locker room invited our attention that elite school in Delhi, how the boys were conspiring by creating a WhatsApp group, which is Boys Locker Room, and they were conspiring to trap the classmates and rape them. No, and one of the boys who told his journalist mother that this is what was happening, and she filed a petition. She filed the case in the FIR in the police station, and then so it came out that there are hundreds of such boys locker room who are perpetrating cyber crime, and National Commission for Women, State Commission for Women, they started training programs for safety, cyber safety, and also the question of massive distribution of pornographic films. In fact, so many currently also there was a raid in Mud Island where the big pornographic center has emerged in one bungalow. So that has happened. And it is in this context that civil society organizations, educational institutions, women's organizations, and the state, they need to work. That it is, we have to contest, we have to fight against both pandemic and violence against women and children. The first response came immediately after the lockdown by the women's organizations, and so many organizations all over India, they created this poster with mobile numbers of the women's groups, so that 24/7 they could the people in distress could contact them. And it was not only for women, but it was for anyone who was in distress. And as a result of this new awareness that came, and so many state governments came up, police also came up with its own helpline, and newspapers also published the mobile numbers of these helplines. So communication, dialogue, information technology, relief and resources, and appropriate policy, I think they need to go hand in hand. Kerala emerged as one of the best example of a best practice in the world. Even in the unlock period, Kerala is the only state which has promised that the new jobs which are created in the post-corona pandemic, they would be gender mainstreaming. In fact, 3 days they had a big international conference in collaboration with UN Women. They have created a gender institute within the state government, and that was very important. In Maharashtra also, as the people's organization started approaching the government bodies, they were responding in terms of providing support system. Delhi government, they increased their health budget to 10%, which was the recommendation of World Health Organization. Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, there when the reverse migration took place, these governments played a very responsive role. They were accessible to the people. Another the question that is very important is that about the allocation. Like UN and WHO has asked that all countries should at least allocate 6% of GDP to health needs, which has not happened currently. Even if the latest budget, which was presented on 1st of February, also has given less than 1% of GDP. So I think currently the health organizations are lobbying. Another thing is that Ujjwala gas scheme, the use of time use survey, discrimination of MG Narega, and stoppage of vaccination. All these things need urgent attention. And the new schemes which government have come up with, 116 districts of our country, where 25 new schemes for employment generation. I think we need to demand that in all these schemes, women, there should be equal weightage. If nothing, then quota, 30% of the new job creation should include women. I think that's the only way to deal with the distress which they are facing, and 15 ministries are involved in that. So we as gender economists are insisting on this. The question of this thing that the constitution has guaranteed us equality, but currently what we see is a massive inequality. We want to move towards equality, but treating people equally in an unequal circumstances is also unjust, because different people have a different kind of support system. So we need equity, and equity is extremely important. Along with that, we also need justice, because there is so much of violence and hostility and prejudice against women. So women's organizations are demanding that for gender equality, we need a financialization of economy with a gender perspective. We need to ensure delivery of reproductive health services. Then curfew passes to wherever, because now we have a selective curfews in certain states. It's not widespread, because only where there are incidences of corona are high, there you have curfew. But there also we have to be gender sensitive. Fully functioning ICDS centers, because that was one thing which was very important in Indian context, because one hot meal children used to get because of ICDS. But after closing down of ICDS due to pandemic, that meal service, I think it needs to be resumed, because otherwise our children are going to be heavily malnourished. So balanced diet for pregnant and lactating mothers, which also comes from ICDS, 90 days of wages for all pregnant women in third trimester, and also the services for women helpline, short stay home, child helpline, they should be fully functional, and they need also to be increased. And we also need to create directory of support services, because then anytime there is such pandemic, whether it is a natural disaster or health disaster, we can readily get the support system. Because why? We have seen that different countries had a different kind of responses when it came to, like, so many countries, New Zealand, Australia, where women were heading the institution or a country, or even in Kerala, the health minister, she manage the pandemic in such a human way, without causing much human misery. So I think that is very the same kind of a sensitivity we need to show. And we need to also, there is a universal demand that there should be income support. Most of the industrialized countries are providing income support, and I think we also need income support for all those who are at the margin of the economy. And also reduction of unpaid care work, that is also very important, through bringing the new technology, the human way of managing, and also the sharing and caring, that is very important. And for the workers also, there is a demand for a more income support, like reduction of socioeconomic inequality through gender public policies which are gender sensitive. That is very important. Acknowledgement of the stellar role of NGOs, CBOs, CSOs, women's groups, because with limited resources, the way they have shown courage of conviction, where none of the politicians or bureaucrats were even entering the basti or going to the corona affected areas, they were the ones who went there with tremendous courage and commitment, and provided the relief operation on a sustained basis for 9 months, 10 months, and some of them are still continuing. Another thing is that the Fortune 500 companies, we need to sensitize them that the CSR, corporate social responsibility, which they have taken, they need to show more commitment to reduce the human miseries and the people who have suffered as a result of COVID pandemic. And along with the human rights organizations, we also need to adopt right-oriented protocols with regard to people who are in prison, who are in administrative migration center, quarantine center, confinement camps, vaccination centers, and people with disabilities in the institutions, people who need mental health facilities. I think there should not be use of any force or repression or any kind of a violence by the state should not be allowed. These are some of the references. I think all of them are available online. Some very good research is done during lockdown and after the pandemic, and they are rapid assessment studies directly based on their own grassroots level contexts, and they are very important in terms of creating evidence-based policy intervention in our country. Thank you very much. Hello. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. May I request Pawana Anjis, ma'am? to give vote of thanks.
Before that,
Before that, if yes,
questions?
ma'am.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah,
Any questions from the participants?
yeah. We need better laws. Yeah, very fully endorse. We need more laws. We need better laws. Yes, you are right. And
Hello.
we also know, yeah, yes,
Hello.
yeah, but yes,
Yes, sir.
Uh,
We can hear you.
uh, Good evening, ma'am. This is Narayan Barman.
yeah,
Ma'am, during COVID-19 and there is a labor laws. It is introduced by different states. It's first is, introduced by Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. The working hours it increased from 8 hours to 12
12,
hours.
12
So what
states
kind
have
of
done.
yes,
12
ma'am.
states have done
So
that. Gujarat, Telangana, Bihar, UP,
uh,
Jharkhand. Yeah, so many
uh,
states
so
have done.
the So how it is possible, ma'am? Actually,
It's not
when
possible.
it, May Divas, it started from America during that time for 8 hours and movement and all. But nowadays it is in the postmodern period. We are introducing 12 hours working hours. So it's a severe attack on labor community, especially those they are coming from the interior of the our country and
Yeah,
especially tribal people they are coming and all. So simultaneously it is with their family nursing and all, it's very difficult. So it need to be mobilize people like this kind of things. It's totally the against of the Indian backward community, against the labor community and all.
correct.
So
Yeah,
I think research to be needed, and I'm also thinking I'm in Delhi right now. So I want to visit some pockets, especially migrants who are staying here. So that's my actually I'm thinking from last 4 or 6 months how it is possible 12 hours working hours. It's not possible even in sitting 12 5 hours. It's very difficult in the room and working 12 hours in the workplace. It's very difficult.
correct. Yeah, I think that that is why 34 national level trade unions, they immediately rushed to ILO, and ILO's director, he spoke to the labor minister, and they said that has India backed out of its agreement with decent work, because decent work also accepts the formula of 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, and 8 hours of leisure time activity. Okay, so
Yes,
that
ma'am.
is the formula which is accepted in the 20th century by almost all democratic institutions and all. But the problem is that even when we had earlier 48 labor legislations, they protected only 6% of the workforce. 94% were in the unorganized sector, where there is a law of jungle. So first of all, most important thing is that how to bring those who are in the informal and unorganized sector also in the ambit of social security and social protection. So that is very important thing, one. Because when it comes to even maternity benefits, okay, maternity benefits or factories act or the safety at workplace, or all these things are required at a workplace for every worker, not only for those who are in a statutory sector. No, so that is our major battle, that bringing each and every sector's workers, whether you are a rural, tribal, urban, this thing, service sector, agriculture, manufacturing, platform based, gig economy, all should be given social security and social protection. And that is a global demand now, it has emerged. And in our country, organizations like self-employed women's organization, even the 5 reports, rapid assessment studies prepared by Indian Social Studies Trust, you see, they have done research on what happened to women vendors, what happened to women domestic workers, what happened to women in the factory, what happened to women who are in food processing industry, what happened to women who are in sanitary work or frontline workers. Now all these things, I think we need to create more and more public education, because there is such a strong middle class bias. Whole corona discourse is only as if it is only about gated community, no, social isolation. Who has a luxury to have social isolation? Only you and me, who are protected, who are in the flat, who have people who get the things from Amazon and Flipkart and all, who are provided everything. We are not even bothered. And how many people are there? 2 or 3% of Indian population, or in all of them.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think the question of most of them, like pandemic profiteers, 25 companies which have made billions and billions dollars of profit. And how are they surviving? They have this the e-commerce. Who are the suppliers? Main suppliers are young boys and girls, and they had to have certain targets. They have to send pizza within 15 minutes. They have to reach their consignment within 12 hours. Now, unless we develop empathy and social solidarity for people and get out of our own narcissism and hedonism, and that's what the capitalism makes, no, it makes you hedonistic, so self-seeking, you don't care. So what we need is a solidarity across multiple marginalities, sensitivity to transgender, sensitivity to informal sector workers, sensitivity to domestic workers. So how come 85% of domestic workers did not get their wages for over last 10 months? Some of the domestic that cook, you should have heard all those stories of women in Dharavi who were standing in the queue for relief operation. My daughter has been doing relief work from 16th of March till now. Also, their community kitchens are running. These are the women. They said they worked in that home for 18 years. For 18 years, she used to make food for the family. And they were the ones who did not pick up phone when she rang up. And they were the ones who had given her mobile because they could call her back, and anytime they wanted, they could call her, because so many employers give mobile to their workers because they have to be at the back end call of the service. Now, at the time of corona lockdown, they did not even pick up phone. When they went there to collect their wages, at the gate only, the watchman said, "Koi ghar mein nahi hai. Nobody is home. You go away." Now, if this is the level of insensitivity, and that lady very nicely said, "Ma'am, they have two cars. They are so this thing. Once they order food, it comes to 2,000, 3,000 rupees when they order food from restaurant. My salary is 2,000. Couldn't they give me my salary?" Your heart breaks, no, when it happens. So I think when we talk about gender equality, the first thing is that empathy for the people who are at the receiving end of the system. Then only we will be able. The solidarity is very important. Social solidarity is very, very important. Even for the employers organization, we need to reach out to them through FICCI or Indian Merchant Chambers, and all. We have to tell them that this is not the way. You can't make this 16-year-old, 18-year-old girl work for 12 hours and not even allow her to go to the loo. Just you want to maintain your target of garments. Bangalore, that's what happened. Bangalore women workers, they were asked to extend the work even beyond 12 hours. It is at that state that they broke down. So it will create otherwise social anarchy if this is the level of super exploitation takes place. You are right, Narayan, because Narayan has done a good study of reverse migration, the workers who went back to the border of Bihar and Bengal. He did a lot of focus.
And nowadays, ma'am, another things, like before it was like biri worker. Actually, I did it MPhil biri worker on, and before initially biri worker, it's for factory basis practices, and there's some provisions from government that they should keep some basic amenities to the worker. That's why they can survive easily and all. But
Yeah.
after that, the very factory owner, they started to shifting their company factory to household level
Yeah.
to avoid the differences and different provisions. Nowadays, it is coming in the secondary and tertiary, especially in teaching line also. If you see the contractual basis from last 10 years, especially this NDA government, there is no recruitment, permanent recruitment in central university level and another state level also. So most of the university is vacancy. So they are recruiting the class basis, per class basis. They are giving the remuneration and all. So it's a way to avoid the all the provision, all the security, livelihood security, to extract this all the thing from the people.
So I think whenever this Atmanirbhar Bharat Yojana, where the 99% of the money is going to micro, medium, and small scale industries, I think the state has to have a conditionality that unless they perform all the labor protection, social security, and social protection of workers, if they implement it, they would not get they would not be eligible for any kind of funding, because because we have a Migration Workers Act, and that is the most violated act. Had it been implemented, such a misery would not have taken place. No, such a major exodus of human beings has never happened in the human history. Whole world is talking about reverse migration and those horrible stories and the nerve-wracking experiences with the women and children and poor people had to undergo. Even the elderly women had to undergo. So I think that would not have happened had we implemented Interstate Migration Act, which came way back in the 86, no? And that was the most violated act we have in our country. So I think we need to be far more proactive wherever we are, whether we are in the labor studies department, or whether we are in the management, or whether we are in personnel or HR, or we are in the civil society organizations or NGO.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Dr. Patel, you said about the people who hired these cooks and all, they did not help them. But what about the
Not
government?
help, their own wages. They did not want help. They wanted their pasine ki kamai.
Correct. So what
not
about
a help.
the government? The government said that there were no migrant workers. We didn't see anybody walking on the road. So what do we do about the government data stating that nobody went back home, nobody walked miles and miles? So what do we do with that?
They did not say. The Supreme Court said, no, Supreme Court, when the petition was filed about migrant workers, reverse migration, the Supreme Court said, no, that on this particular day, 2.51 lakh workers are on the road, but we don't have data. We don't have data. How many have died? How many are dehydrated? How many are stuck? How many? Because people use different to avoid curfew and to avoid beating by police. That was the time police was mercilessly beating people. So they use various routes. Some were walking on the track, some were walking on the highway, some were using forest routes, some were swimming. Also, we have data only of those who were on railway track and those who were on highway. But what happened to others? So the Labor Ministry said they did not have accurate data. After this, they started the data. And when they reached the destination, the state government started collecting data. So when they reached, because everywhere there were barricades, no? Barricades between cities, barricades between states. Once you reach the border of Maharashtra, there were barricades because of lockdown. So it was at that point they started collecting data of how many people were entering, mainly to track them, because if they were carriers of corona, because 33% of those who were moving, they had already caught corona. Okay, so even to avoid the health emergency, they started maintaining data. But now all this data, which is decentralized in 38 states and union territories, you need an all India data about the immigration, migration, intra-district migration, interstate migration, and inter-district migration. So all those we need to have.
Madam, Dr. Patel, there's one question that has always perplexed me. We talk about the migration and we talk about the lakhs of people going, and then we talk about, just now you said the police brutality, and then we talk about the people on the way feeding them. Never, never, never have we heard of the government feeding them. What was this lack of will due to? Why did it happen? How did it happen? I cannot understand. Why is there not a single story of a government organization feeding them or giving them anything on the way? What created this lack of will on the part of the government? I'd like you to help me understand.
I think bureaucracy is always like that, no? Always insensitive. Because even if government wanted to do it, what they did is they opened the FCI godowns. Okay, so any NGO, registered NGO, could lift grain, rice, and wheat from FCI godown, which is by government. But who would do the sheer labor of taking those gunny bags and taking to the people? That the organizations did, no civil society organizations did, because government bureaucrats had their own chores of maintaining records and collecting data and reaching and keeping whole government machinery was only concentrating on COVID. Creation of camp or creation of quarantine zone or commission of advisory were changing every day. All that kept them busy. And so many of them could not reach their workplace because of lockdown. Public transport was also locked down. So even for a person staying in 40 kilometers or 30 kilometers or 55 kilometers away from the office, whichever, and mainly government means what? Only local self-government bodies, urban and rural. It is not the central government or a state government which did everything. The whole Corona warriors were from municipal corporation, municipal council, Gram Sabha, district panchayat, and the Jilla Panchayat. It is at that level, rural and urban self-government bodies and the employees there. So even government had to depend largely on the people, no? Neighborhood societies and senior citizens organization and the youth organization and national university students like Kalina Camp, Bombay University, they also started a camp and they started a community kitchen within the university. So wherever there is a workforce, the people who are ready to, and first of all, the phobia, coronaphobia was also very high. So many people did not want to risk. So people who were not, who could transcend coronaphobia, they were the only ones who would do such work, no? So that's also very important. So that's why the people's initiative, the community initiative became very important in combat, at least in providing the basic day-to-day necessities.
Thank you, ma'am.
You suggested
In
a
fact,
very
they
good
roped
idea
in school
about
teachers, like government sent the GR, no? All school teachers had to do the distribution. They had to maintain record of PDS, 20 kg of wheat and rice. That the distribution part was for the school teachers. They were the ones who were making the census of people, because there are so many undeserving and antisocial elements also are there, even in the time of crisis. Twice when my daughter reached Kolaba slum, one bully came. He just stopped his two-wheeler in front of their tempo. They had a list of people who had to be given the ration kit. Each kit cost 1,200 rupees. There are 16 items, right from toothpaste and hair oil to grain and sanitary material and everything. And he just gave a sign, and just people came and looted the whole truck. 100 meters away from police. Police was watching. She was so devastated. She was so devastated. In other place, the people, they did not take police protection. They went all by themselves, because they had got the list that these were the people, women-headed households. Basically, they did not have a single male member, and they lockdown did not allow. So they had the list of women-headed households in that particular basti, and just police came, they mobbed them and took away everything. After that, they took, later on, they started taking help of home guard. So that also happens. So you have to be very, very alert, and you have to create your own support system. And and also transcend coronaphobia. Like doctors were charging 2,500, between 2,500 to 4,000 rupees just to write one sentence. This person is physically fit to travel. When government allowed, when they say that the workers could go back to their native place because they had no money to pay rent, at that time, these were the charges by the private practitioner, just on their letterhead to write. So the NGOs had to organize health camp in the basti. They got doctors, volunteers from Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders. That's another international organization. These doctors came and they gave them, without that, you need some 16 to 18 papers just to go back to your native place. Not only Aadhaar and ration card and voter card and police clearance and clearance from employer and clearance from neighborhood committee and all sorts of things which they were demanding. And it was very difficult for them to get that. And that's why so many of them who could not arrange those papers, they just started moving by the road where they would say that they would not confront police. No? So all the dangerous routes which they took, mainly to avoid police and to avoid Nakabandi.
And Madam Dr. Patel, somebody was telling me, I don't know whether it is true and if it is has any reality checks done on it, but somebody was telling me that most of the migrants were of the lower caste.
Yeah. That is Ashwini Deshpande's very good study. They were OBC, other backward caste, SC, ST, and minorities. And it is proved. Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, CMI, provided the data of who are the migrant workers according to the skills: carpenters, plumbers, fitters, turners, electrician, lathe makers, those who are doing construction workers, loading and unloading workers. So we have occupational classification of the Indian economy. So in this occupational classification, who all come? They are basically other backward caste, like 85% other backward caste,
Yeah.
SC, ST, and Muslims.
OBCs, yeah. So
It's a very scientifically done study by Ashwini Deshpande. You can even Google it and you will say that. And she has also done a gender analysis of the whole migrant, this thing, no? Those
so,
who reverse.
Madam, would you say that because they were of the lower class,
Yes.
that
So,
they did not get any help from the government? Would you
government.
say?
And also the question of purity and pollution. Yeah, that is also because the bureaucrats are all upper caste. They are either Banyas or Brahmins or upper caste people. So there is a strong elitist bias among Indian bureaucracy, because they are the only they are the ones who are IAS officers. They are the ones who are in mantralayas and sachivalayas and also the various ministries. So the insensitivity towards the lower caste, which is ingrained in the caste-based segregation that is there. And also the question of purity, when they reach the border of UP, the way they were treated, the kind of sanitization, that whole scenario is so unnerving. They just threw pesticides on them, no?
I
When
know.
they reach the border of UC. One can never imagine, you don't even do such things even with the animals, no?
Yes.
You don't
And
do that.
Madam, I was
So this
wondering
level
also,
of insensitive. Yeah.
that was the reason why the police refused to help them. Also, all they did was beat them because they didn't want.
What police? When these people, when the relief workers were telling us, when they were doing the relief work, they were not given any curfew passes, and still they continued. So my daughter, till now, she doesn't have curfew pass. From 16th of March, she has been traveling right from Kolaba to Panvel. Everywhere are more than 60, 70 bastis, they have provided their ration. And they were not given. And then police would say, and only thing they had was a poster on their car, relief operations, no, for relief. And so many times, like corrupt police officers in Nakabandi, they would just stop the vehicle and they said, "Hum bhi to garib hai, we are also poor. Give us 2 bags, 3 bags, 10 bags." And these are there are many who relented, who got scared and gave, but our people would not give. Then they say, "Show your curfew pass." Then say,
I,
and these people would deliberately go near the police officer. Yeah, please, I'm taking it out from my. No, you keep awake, Okay, you go. They said even when there was such a strong phobia among police that they would not, even the relief workers, they treated them as leper.
that's
So,
true. Yeah.
yeah. So I told, I said, "Aren't you scared? You don't have curfew pass?" They said, "No, nobody is bothered. They are so scared of us because every day they see us, they think that we are carrier of corona." So nobody comes near us. Even the bureaucrats and all, they all said Zoom meeting. We will not meet you in person. Even when some 10 lakh sanitary pads BMC gave to Jamila Begum, and she said that what is this of nowhere sanitary pads are available over the counter after lockdown. So they said, okay, everything was decided on Zoom meeting. None of the bureaucrats would come to the basti or would come to check things and all. So government was it was people to people solidarity throughout
Yeah.
the.
God bless your daughter for all the lovely work she has done for the people.
Yeah, and it's not only, there are a lot of people. In their group, there were 25 from
Yes.
IIT, from TISS, Nirmala Niketan, and sisters from Bandra Convent and also Bombay University. So it was a big team.
Yes, in Bandra, there have been a lot of churches and convents
St.
who have.
Peter's Church, yeah, they also created, yeah.
Yes.
They
And
also
many.
shelter
Yeah.
also they gave. So women's shelter, because the common shelter, there were cases of sexual harassment. So finally, when the social apostolate, which Father Bishop Alvin started, when we reported to them, then the Bandra Hill Road shelter home was only for women and children.
Only for women and children.
Women
Yeah.
and children.
I think no more further questions. You gave us so much of information. So may I take this opportunity to thank you, Dr. Vibhuti, for a wonderful session. It was, as GS Mrs. Shobha Phillips said, you're a storehouse of knowledge, and indeed we were given a whole lot of information. So thank you, Dr. Vibhuti, for giving all that information made us think a lot. It also brought to the forefront the grim realities of gender inequalities during this global pandemic. I think it has always been there. So you brought us to the realities that women faced. Thank you for the wonderful session. We had almost 40 people for all the information that you gave, so many recipients to take on that information. Thank you, ma'am, for coming and being a part of our PASI program. Thank you, PASI Chairperson, Dr. Sonal, all the committee members. Thank you, President, Ms. Sharon Pyrus, and all the members who participated, friends. We had some invitees all over India. I could see people from Andhra Pradesh joining us for this session. So thank you all for coming. Thank you, Shobha, for arranging this, inviting the resource person. Thank you, Deltina. Thank you all for the wonderful evening, informative, very, very accurate statistics and data given. I was also wanting to ask you about the helpline for pregnant women. I hope as YWCA we can take on this
Yeah, I think very important. Very.
helpline for pregnant women. So that was a takeaway for us. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you all. God bless you. And may there be more such informative sessions. Thank you all.
Yeah, I also express my heartfelt thanks for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, ma'am. And thanks to all participants. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.